Welcome back to the Cricket Diaries. So we've been off air for a little while since the end of the season. I'm probably still crying over a traumatic T20 finals day for myself, and that wasn't just the fact that I was sitting next to George for the entire day. um, but yeah, we're back. The cricket's back. Ashes cricket is back, and we've been loving it. Especially somebody who's been staying up every single night to watch every ball, just so we can speak to every single person who will entertain him for more than 5 seconds about how great cricket is again. So, George, welcome back. And how much you've been loving the cricket?
Great to be back, Ben. Missed the pod as ever, but really, really good to be back. Yeah, well, I mean, maybe results rise. Haven't enjoyed it as much as I could or should have, but to be honest, I think when England lose, I actually realise how much I love cricket because as much as I get depressed and down and upset about it, I also am still the fool who will watch every single ball and stay up 9 hours through the whole night, even though I know probably what's going to happen. So it probably reaffirms my love for the game more than the opposite. So no, it's just great to be back, and in a way, I really needed the Ashes because I mean you had a tough time with T20 finals day, but you got to remember that day that Hampshire got knocked out 2 hours before you guys. And what I was trying to say to keep my spirits up to everybody in the Sussex supporters stand that I was in, looking like a giant bumblebee with my Hampshire shirt on sticking out like the sorest of thumbs, saying, "Oh, don't worry, we'll win the championship at the end of the week. It's fine." We didn't, so you know, we were 1 wicket away, but we didn't. So now I've needed the Ashes to cheer my spirits up anyway. But no, it's just great to have it back. And in my mind, Ben, the Ashes is the greatest sporting contest in the whole world. So you can't beat it. And I'm going to try and stay optimistic in this pod, and we'll keep going. But no, just great to have it back. It's incredible, and I love it like you do.
Definitely, and obviously, family life since the last pod. I'm now engaged. I'm now full time stepdad. Thank you, full time stepdad, and therefore sleep is very important to me. I've got two little ones running around the whole time, so I've not been able to stay up late for this test. However, looking forward to some early mornings though for the 4 a.m. start for this second test starting. But been loving cricket back. England, the hope what kills you. Uh, really looking forward to the series. Thought it was going to be really tight. Didn't look like that in the first 2 days. But then all of a sudden, England came back. A great partnership from Milan and Root. Uh, honestly, I thought we were going to turn the test around. It'd be the biggest comeback ever. And then I woke up the following morning and England had already lost. So back to square one again. But yeah, it was just great having cricket in the news for the right reasons. Some really great stories from the first test, and a citing of the fact that obviously this series now doesn't look like it would go the whole way. I think England would probably only win 3-1 now, not the 5-0 I was saying on social media before the start of the series. Um, but yeah, it's just great being back. What was any particular moment? I obviously missed everything because I was asleep, but what did I miss in my sleep, George?
Well, I know you didn't miss because I'm sure you said it for the first ball. I know you did. I know you didn't miss the biggest talking point, which was, well, if you pardon the pun, miss Burns because Burns certainly missed something that first ball, didn't he? So
Oh, was that a golden duck he had first ball, I believe?
I wish it was. No, it was actually a platinum duck, because it was the first ball of an entire match, an entire series. So yeah, actually, he's even in a rarer form of cricketing infamy with a platinum duck. I'm sad that I know that, but yeah, it's it's not a great thing to have on your mantelpiece, but yeah, what wasn't the best start, but you know you got to hand it to England. It's a 5 day sport, cricket. and they managed to hand the victory to Australia in the first 5 minutes. It's a new skill. Well, actually, the first 5 seconds, really.
Mm.
But it's a new skill. But to be fair, what I said about England was I'm an internal optimist. I think a lot of people know this in the pod. I'm a bit like you. I'm always wanting England to do well and always believe. But I just said, look, I think the result is going to be a loss, most definitely. But I just want to see a passage of play that shows England showing a bit of fight, a bit of grit, a bit of heart, because we need to go to Adelaide with at least having something to work with, at least some positive. And day three definitely was that. It was a joy to watch. I think Milan, firstly, is just born to play in Australia. I think it just matches his skill sets. He's a great player. Bounce, which is bouncier pitch in Gabba, and just just a good skill set for Australia and Root as well. I mean, I think this is another crazy thing is looking through the stats. Root is statistically, not even as a metaphor, is over 1,000 times better statistically than any other English batsman at the moment. So I mean, without him, there is no Ashes. I sometimes think it's Australia versus Joe Root and a couple of his mates who've come along for the ride. But it was great. But I also said, because I went to a little Ashes party with a good friend of mine on Friday night, big cricket fan as well, and we were going to stay up, and we'd been given this renewed optimism after day three. But even me, as an eternal optimist, we went to the pub before, and I remember saying, wouldn't it be the most England cricket thing for both Malan and Root to get out in the first 10-20 minutes of day four and both of them not convert into tons, into centuries? And I went, it won't happen though. We'll get something. And then 3 hours later, watching my exact prediction come through. All my good predictions about England never come through, but my worst horrible premonition came through and unfolded right in front of my eyes. So no, it was nasty. But this the thing is that there is hope, but also there's a lot of things where England just got it completely wrong. Because I actually don't think I was going to ask you what you think about this. I don't think actually England and Australia are that far away from each other. I think we have made a lot of things in these last 4 days make Australia look so much better than they are. They're not invincible. Like you say, all England are only good with Root and maybe Stokes or Malan on fire in terms of batting. Okay, but you take Smith and Labuschagne out of it. I mean, of course, and I know you'll be happy about this. Travis Head looked incredible and actually took the game away. But really, if one of Smith or Labuschagne aren't firing, you've only got them and another good batsman like a Travis Head anyway. So
Mm.
really, there's a lot of things that they're not that far away from. But England need to really get a rocket, you know, up them, because at the moment they're making them seem like we're some sort of under 16 side playing against big men, and it annoys me because I don't think there's that much of a gulf. But we've got to keep the faith, I think.
Definitely, and we try not to spend too much time on this first test because it wasn't great from an England point of view. However, I do believe exactly what you said. We made Australia look good with how poor our batting was in that first innings. And actually, if you take that first innings out and put another 150 on it, it would have been a lot closer contest and could have gone either way. So, um, yeah, difficult start. Had a very difficult build up though to the test with all the rain around and no real warm up action going. But hopefully, let's just call this as a warm up test. We've given the Australia need a bit of help.
Yeah,
We've given them a lead. Didn't Australia win the first test in 2005 at Lords and went 1-0 up?
yeah. I mean, Australia win most first tests in an Ashes series, but yeah, they did.
Yeah, and who won that series? This there's no reason why this can't be any different. And in terms of the second test, what I'm looking for, we need a bit of fire. What potential sort of like great thing to have in your arsenal? We've got over 1,000 test wickets coming into this pink ball test with Anderson George.
1,156 to be precise.
Yeah, that's very precise to be fair. But it didn't change the last test though, did it?
No, no. Um,
um,
yeah, it's. I thought that was a baffling decision to leave Broad out. I mean, I don't want to dwell on the Gabba too much, but I think one thing I will say just quickly, I love Joe Root, and I know that. I mean, we've only had 7 centuries this year, and 6 of them in this calendar year being Joe Root, and one of them is Rory Burns, and I can't see Rory Burns making a century for a long while. But I mean, I have hope he'll turn it around, but I doubt it. But he's been such a linchpin for us, and I absolutely love him. But sometimes I think he's a little too magnanimous, and a little too sort of not strong enough for his own good. Like he said, "Oh, England got just a few key decisions wrong in this test, and if we change it, we'll be all right." I actually think sometimes Joe, not about himself, but Joe needs to go and say, sometimes there's a few players in that dressing room who didn't stand up this test match. They weren't good enough, and we just need to acknowledge that. That's not saying they're not good enough as players, because I think on their day, I'm not. This is certainly not the best English side to come over to Australia. It's not even a mediocre side. It's pretty poor in some areas, sure, but man for man, on their day, England can compete. But there needs to be a bit of fight and say, come on, like prove me wrong. I don't think we were good enough this test, but we know what we've got to do and keep going for it. If we saw a little bit more fight from Joe Root, I think that would resonate to the players a bit more. I don't want to be criticising Root because we wouldn't even be in this fight without Joe Root in terms of him as a player. But I do think he needs to be a bit stronger sometimes. I don't know what you think about that.
Definitely, and obviously we've got Silverwood now in charge 100% of the selection of the team as well.
Mm.
So there isn't these board of selectors to um, sort of like hide behind. But I do think they did get the without not even being sort of like Captain Hindsight here. Yeah, the selection was wrong, but everybody was saying the selection was wrong. Day one before um, Burns got bowled first of all. We was all saying it way before that, and actually, start of the series, we could have really gone out, made an impact, and
Mm.
even if we'd have lost, but we had Broad playing and he'd been able to get Warner out early or something, and just put a bit of a authority on us rather than we kind of gave them the first test.
Exactly. And I would have liked to have thought that England would have learned their lesson a little bit, but I don't think they have. I mean, if I'm honest, I have kind of a slight theory here that this is a reverse version of the third test in Ahmedabad in the winter in India, where we went to Ahmedabad, the brand new stadium, biggest cricket stadium in the world. We went there and we saw the pitch over a number of days because England had been training there. We saw the pitch at the toss, absolute spinner's paradise. And Root only played one spinner, and it happened to be a part-time spinner, and that was himself. He didn't play a frontline spinner at all. Then you go to the Gabba and you see this pitch, and you've been around the setup for the last few days. You've seen it, and you don't pick a proper seamer for green conditions like Stuart Broad. I understand that Anderson was and he could have played, but you probably want to protect him for Adelaide. I'm not against that, but with Broad, I just thought, how are you not playing him? And I just think England have made the same mistake as they did in Ahmedabad, just with seamers and not spinners. Because also what they've done here now is they potentially ruined Jack Leach's tour through kind of no fault of his own. I'm not anti Jack Leach. I just know for a fact that that was not a Jack Leach pitch. When you're a bowler who really gets wicket, I mean, I wouldn't say he's a born wicket taker anyway, Jack Leach. But what he does is he'll get wickets normally when he's able to spin the ball sideways, get some turn on it. You're never in a million years going to get that in Brisbane. So I
Yeah,
don't know what you want them to do. If they wanted him to tie up an end, he wasn't able to do that because the Australian eyes lit up and they just attacked him. And I'm worried now that he's just going to be devoid of confidence all week. If they need a little bit of spin, I mean, I'm a bit angry that Joe Root doesn't have more confidence in his own abilities. You know, if you want a little bit of part-time spin, he is a good part-time spinner. He's competent at the end of the day. And people going to me lastly on this, yeah, but Nathan Lyon gets it. But we don't have any spinners like Nathan Lyon. I don't think Nathan Lyon's an amazing spinner. I think Ashwin's the best spinner in the world by far. But with Nathan Lyon, what you've got is someone who's a competent guy. To give the ball to him on day 5, and I expect him to spin his team to victory. I'm not sure I can pick on any spinners in our setup, especially as we haven't picked Matt Parkinson for the squad, to be able to do that. I mean, apart from maybe Mason Crane, but then again, I'm a biased Hampshire fan. So, but yeah, that's my thought really on this.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And just a disclaimer: me and George are both passionate tail enders. Therefore, this is nothing against uh, Jack Leach whatsoever. He is a legend in
Yeah,
ours and Felix White's eyes, truly. So we love him to pieces. It just wasn't the right wicket, wasn't the right game for him. It was just a bit of we have to play a spinner, so we put Leach in. But I'll get you completely. Actually, Joe Root would have been the better option. I think we'd have got him out for less if we had Root spinning and Stuart Broad playing. But onwards and upwards.
yeah.
Second test, Adelaide, England win. I can't see any other different result. Root's going to get 100. So
I think it's. I mean, I want to be optimistic, and I think England will come back with a vengeance. Whether that's enough to force a victory, I don't know. But I do think we will see an improving performance. But again, we kind of should because this is better conditions for us. A, but B, in my mind, yes, you lose Adelaide. The series statistically is still on the line. But really, if you lose Adelaide, for me, it locks the door completely. We have to
yeah,
win this to have a chance. Or at worst, manage to come out of it without losing. But I think now that weather pattern didn't actually really come in Brisbane, but we thought it was going to come. But unless weather comes, I don't see any tests being a draw either way.
yeah,
So I think we really got to force the victory on this. We will have Broad and Anderson back, I'm pretty sure, and that's really really good for us. I also think not that I really believe right now. I might after Adelaide, but I don't believe now that the series will go right to the end. But there are certain things now that do play into England's hands. We have to look at the positives. We're not going to Perth now this year at
hmm
all. Admittedly, it wasn't going to be at the Wacker anymore. It's going to be at the new ground. And admittedly, it wasn't going to be the traditional third test. It was going to be the fifth test. But we have won there once in the whole entire history of the Ashes in 1978. We never won at all apart from that one moment. That takes that out. Then you go from Adelaide, where we did win in that Fateful Ashes series 11 years ago, 2010 11, and we had some success there. You then, if you come out of Adelaide with something, you go into Melbourne and Sydney, which are two grounds where we had statistically the most success ever in Australia. We've actually got for England in Australia, they're fairly good records. And then you go to the fifth test, where if it was on the line, it's in Tasmania at the Blundstone Arena in Hobart for the first time in history. Which obviously, it's an island off the coast of Australia, so it's different conditions to the mainland. And it's a day nighter pink ball with very humid by the sea, those sort of conditions that is the most English we're going to get in Australia. So there are certain things if England can keep a fight and keep the series alive for a certain time,
it's definitely.
now it definitely plays into our hands more than any tour before.
And Hobart, as you say, obviously we're getting ahead of ourselves. And for me, a draw in the Ashes series is no good because Australia keep the arm. And it's small, but I want it back. But Hobart, as you say, it's the most English-like conditions we ever get in Australia. It, very unlikely we'll ever be in Hobart again.
Yeah,
Just as the way that their grounds are set up. This is our best opportunity to be a under strength Australia side. And you've also got one of the things that sort of like popped in my head as you was talking about that. This will definitely be Jimmy Anderson's last Ashes down under.
yeah,
This is most likely 90% Stuart Broad's last Ashes down in Australia. The series being 2-2 or whatever, pink ball, underlights, those two will give every bit of their body to win the Ashes down under.
yeah.
with a pink ball. For an English point of view, I don't think we could get a better chance to win the Ashes if we can get to Hobart
Mm,
equal in the series.
yeah,
Uh,
and
I
I
don't
think
think
England
we'll be ahead.
factor that in. Mm,
Mm. I don't think we'll be ahead by Hobart, but the big test this without every test is bigger and it's only five games in the series. That is the longest. Every test matters, but
yeah,
the series is Adelaide.
yeah. And
England
I think
win.
England have factored that in as well, because I think even if we were on top form, we know statistically getting out of Brisbane without losing it is incredibly hard. We've gone to the Gabba with a lot better sides prepared for Australia, with a lot more cricket under their belts than what we had, and we've actually lost in even more spectacular fashion than what
Mm.
we did last week. So I think England sort of know that. I think they'll try and take the result with a bit of a pinch of salt, and they'll go in. And now, for us, the Ashes has to begin because our opportunities actually get bigger despite losing. But we have to capitalise on them. The only thing I was going to say was I really agree with your point about Jimmy and Broad, and that this could be their last hurrah for both of them. And I actually really hope, just going back to Brisbane just for one quick second, is basically dropping Stuart Broad might play into our hands, because I remember when he was dropped in the first COVID series for West Indies
Yeah.
in 2020, and he got dropped. He made that real emotional, passionate interview at the Ageas Bowl saying how annoyed he was, but he came back a week later and he became the bowler of our summer for the next 5 tests. And I think keep Stuart Broad down and he'll always come back at you. And that's what I'm praying to see at Adelaide, is to see straight away him absolutely going for it. And I mean, he's got Warner in his back pocket anyway. So if he's brave enough to, I know he's got a bit of an injury, but if he's brave enough to come back, there are certain little psychological advantages that we don't normally have against Australia, which we do from 2019, especially because we drew that series rather than, okay, we lost it by notion that they still had the Ashes, but we didn't lose the series. There are certain things we can use at our disposal which will make it easier for us, and we've got to give ourselves the best chance because we haven't got a great batting lineup. And for all the reasons above, we know this, but we can't change that. But we can control the controllables, and that's what we've got to do a little bit more now.
Mm. Definitely, and yeah, all I can say is on that point, expanding on that Stuart Broad and like that West India series, if Silverwood and Root dropped Broad to wind him up and get him so annoyed about being dropped, potentially we've overlooked and the press has overlooked uh, the best decision ever in an Ashes series in terms of England selection. If he
Mm,
comes out all firing to prove a point that those guys were wrong to drop him from that first test, it might be the best thing which could happen to this series.
exactly. And I think now we're in a position where we just got to hope in that, and in a way trust the process. I know it's hard to sometimes, but I think England they're not as stupid as they look half the time, and I do think that this is also like the scheduling. I think there's some things that work in us. I think Mark Wood was actually brilliant at times in Brisbane, because what he is a 90-mile-an-hour bowler, and he does provide that extra injection of pace that we need. He got it hooping around at some point. What they'll probably do is they'll say, Mark, we've got 2 pink ball day-nighters now, test 2 and test 5. Realistically, you're probably not going to be the right bowler to bowl in those matches, but they do really care about managing his fitness because he's our only genuine fast bowler. So they'll say, now what we've got is an opportunity for you to rest in Adelaide, but play back-to-back tests in Melbourne and Sydney, and then just give us all your pace for those 2 tests. So that works. And then by doing that, bring about for the 2 day nights at least, building, I would say, Broad and Anderson are there as massive, massive key components. But you'll love me for saying this, I think. Build your bowling attack around Ollie Robinson, because he did it amazingly in Brisbane. He releases the ball at a height that is so potent in Australia that all Australian bowlers do in that seam attack of Cummings, Hazelwood, Stark. He's the only one who does it for England. and actually build it around there. He's the one I least worry about with fitness as well. I'm sure you've seen him at home many times give spells where you would think anyone else was completely knackered, but he keeps going.
Mm.
I'm not afraid to see him play as much as he can and build it around him because I was impressed by him more than anyone in Brisbane.
Definitely. And Ollie, if he Ollie gets into, I've seen him bowl more or less a whole session at Hove. He
Mm,
took 9 for in one game in 29. I think he done it in 2020 as well, but 2019 definitely against Middlesex. And literally, we tried to take him. Well, Sussex tried to take him off, and he was literally like, "No, this ball's mine. I'm bowling down this hill, and I'm going to get all 10." And when he's bowling and getting wickets, he will bowl all day. He just absolutely loves the bowl. And I've got, again, we've got the great balance. We've got Jimmy and Broad coming in for the pink ball test, the two of them. If Stuart Broad goes well in this Adelaide test, like we've just talked about, I can't see why we'd actually wouldn't play him in all four now.
yeah.
And have him and then drop Jimmy to bring him upward for Melbourne, and then Jimmy or Wood for Sydney. As is relevant at the time. Obviously, that'd be after another two test matches. Depends on where the series is. But yeah, so moving on from that, so we'll be chatting about cricket when we can on this show. But where can people find you talking about the Ashes, George?
Well, we'll be doing as many shows as we can, which will be great. So we'll be back, which hopefully people are pleased to hear. I'm sure they're pleased to hear that Ben's back more than me because you're probably used to seeing my ugly mug on your screens more often now. But I will also be doing a lot of work with a friend of the show here, Dan from Let's Talk Sport, who we both did a lot of work with in the past, which is a great sports podcast. It covers every sport, but the cricket coverage they've really got into the last few weeks, and we're doing a full Ashes coverage there. So you can catch me after every day one and day five of each remaining test talking Ashes on their Ashes Daily podcast, which is available on Let's Talk Sport. Just find it on Facebook, and that's our group. And we've also just been able to bring in three ex Australian international cricketers. So that is Joe Dawes, who is former Papua New Guinea bowling coach and Aussie international, Mark Cosgrove, who's got a couple of caps for Australia and also is a legend of Leicestershire and county cricket, and World Cup winner Adam Dale won the World Cup with Australia in 1999 in England. So having them over and talking with them will be amazing, and we get some international insight, which will be really, really cool. So yeah, if you want to keep up with the Ashes, don't want to have to watch every single ball like I am, then we've got it covered on both pages.
Mm. Definitely, Dan's doing a great job building Let's Talk Sports, and it's lovely to be on his show, and your shows are great as well with the Ashes. So it's yeah, definitely check that out, and I'll leave the links below. So as well as obviously cricket, the Test series going on, I'm sure George will mention at some point. I have to say it now because it's like it's now the Cricket Diaries law that we mention this guy's name because George is such a big fan. But with the Big Bash going on down under now as well, I'm sure we just mentioned that briefly. George, what do you think of Tyrell Mills' debut today and getting 3 wickets?
Oh, you're such a tease. Um, great performance, great performance. Oh
Uh,
my god.
so wasn't that the player you was expecting?
Yeah, well, they're both English. They're both English, so you know
Mm.
that's where the similarity probably ends.
Well,
But
both
yeah.
left armers as well. George Scarton playing for Adelaide.
Oh no. I unfortunately you would think that people wouldn't get this joke, but everyone knows how much I love the man that we're all referring to anyway, so they know
Laurie
that
Evans,
I.
the Scorchers as well. Sorry,
Oh
I can't,
no,
can't
oh
remember. Was there anyone else?
God, this is torturous. No, we all know Mr. James Vince, king of the Sydney Sixers. He's crushing it as ever, and I know it annoys my fellow podcast host, but you know he's just one of the most gifted players in the history of modern day cricket. So you just can't keep him down for long.
Hmm. And when you say it noise, I thought I came out with a gem. So if Burns and Hamid continue to struggle down under, um, by Boxing Day, um, I think outside shout, rinse to open.
Well, people won't be surprised to say this, but I wouldn't say no. Shock goes around the podcast as I say that. But honestly, like, on a slightly serious note, only slightly, I think that James Since is one of the only English batsman who's consistently getting runs in Australia right now. Yes, it happens to be the Big Bash, but he averages something like 60, just under 64 in Australia at the moment. He was highest run scorer in the Big Bash last year. Well, at least highest run scorer by an Englishman last year in the Big Bash. He got a 95 on no 98 it was in the semi-final, and then he got 100 in the final of the Big Bash last year. It's just, I think, especially with COVID, you need to make sure you have a player. He doesn't need to bubble. He can come straight into a squad, because unfortunately the England Lions have come on this side, like the England B team come on the tour, and they were something like 19 for 4
Mm,
last week. So I don't hold much hope out for them. And I think he's malleable. Vince now has started playing at 5 in the county champ to go anywhere. And I honestly think like he was 20 runs away from the Gabba last year, 15 runs away last year. Last time he played the Gabba in 2017 from getting that Ashes 100 and being a bit of an Ashes hero. So I honestly think that if it really gets bad, I don't see the point of just rolling a dice and giving it to him. I think that would be something I would love. But I tell you one thing, I'm so pro Vince, but James Bracey got 100 last week. And I was going to ask you about this on a more serious level. Bracey, I remember because we went and did one of our blogs and went down to Sussex to Hove to watch Hampshire play Sussex down there for the T20 Blast this summer, which was a great result for you guys. And before, that was the day when the match was going on England, New Zealand at Lords. I remember it well. And we were baffled because we thought Bracey was a great player, but he was really messed around. He's being played at like 6 or 7 when he's not that. He's an opener or a top order batsman at best. And why they were messing him around. And yeah, he didn't have a great test, but then again, if you're going to be played out of position, then that doesn't surprise me. You wouldn't do that in any other sport and expect to get results. So why would you do it in cricket? So I honestly think there might be a change. There's also Zach Crawley. I just worry about Burns. That
mm.
I don't dislike Burns. He's actually the second highest run scorer. Well, he take
This
Root
year.
away, he's the highest run scorer in the last 2 calendar years for
Mm.
England, actually. But I kind of think that's maybe more of a damning indictment on England as a whole rather than just his ability. But he's the only other man to get 100 rather than Root in the last year. But I do worry that he does need a bit of a break because this could get really ugly. I hope I'm wrong and he goes and hits a ton in Adelaide next test, because I don't think Root will drop any of the batsmen. I think he will just make bowling changes. I think he will keep firm with the batsmen. Do you know where I kind of get? Because I don't really think there's any players can come in to improve our batting lineup. I just think this is a fairly weak batting lineup anyway. But I do worry, and that's why I think all options need to be on the table, including the glorious number 14, Mr. James Vince. But hey, that's just me.
But no, I know you are a Vince fan and you always say Vince. However, I really agree that actually Butler was brought back into this Test side due to his IPL form, and he hadn't played red ball for so long. And actually, again, not for Adelaide, and definitely probably I joked about Boxing Day, but I don't think for that one either. However, if England are tied or one behind going into the last 2 tests, say England win in Adelaide, Australia win Boxing Day, going into that fourth test, if we've got openers who aren't hitting runs, but it then gets to a stage of you're 2-1 down in a series and you have to win and win, it's about being really brave and doing something different. And if they are still struggling at the Open, why not? What's the point in
Exactly.
putting cricket is such a game? People see cricket and people who've not played cricket before, and obviously I've only just started playing cricket myself, but it looks an easy game. It's actually quite a very hard game, even at our level. But it's I think this game of cricket is 20% technique and skill, and 80% in your head.
Yeah.
Just from my very, you have a net and you're hitting the ball all over the place, and then you get out there, and cricket is quite cutthroat. It's especially batting. One mistake and that's it. You're gone. And it was half a second between that ball leaving Stark's hand and uh, Burns' leg stump
Mm.
cartwheeling down uh, the pitch, and that half a second obviously would destroy confidence. We like joked about Platinum Duck, but I'm sure he was thinking about first ball, first series,
Yeah.
first test, and hopefully he can come back. And I love Burns, and I'm actually a really big Burn fan. Equally though, if Burns and Hamid aren't on form, but we've got a chance of winning the Ashes series going into the fourth test, we need to make a change, and I can't see any other option but going James Vince, given the COVID world. And if he's hitting 50, if he's averaging 50 in the Big Bash, he's going to be on form. He's, I don't think he's expecting a call either. And just
Yeah.
having that call, just going like, you've had your chances, you had your 85 in the Gabba, and come on, we need you, we need somebody. Give us all you've got, like Broad Anderson, give us all you got for these last two tests. And I can't see why that wouldn't only be a positive outcome against, even if it don't win us the Ashes. I think it would, if and hopefully touch wood, they're not out form. I can't see how it would have any negative impact against what we'd get anyway.
Mm. And without trying to indulge myself too much with this, I do think that like if you look at it, for what's of those last two tests, it would be Sydney, which is he plays for the Sydney Sixers, so most of his amazing form and runs have come on the Sydney cricket ground. And then you've also got Hobart, which is the the most like English style conditions,
Mm,
probably most acclimatized for English batsmen. Anyway, which actually might be maybe anti Vince because maybe Vince is better in more traditional Australian conditions. I don't know, but I think it's just about whether it's Vince or whether it's someone in the England Lions. You know, obviously from personal point of view, I would love it to be Vince, but I've used struck on something really important. He's now not looking for anything. He's not searching. I actually think the COVID bubble and all the cases that came where they had to play in England seaside against Pakistan for the one day internationals when he got his 100 at Edgbaston. I know that was a white ball 100, not a test 100, but he sort of brought a lot of closure on his England career now
mm,
because of that. So I think he doesn't really care what happens. But whether it's him or it's James Bracey or anything, I just want Root and Silverwood to keep their options open and make sure we give ourselves the best chance whenever. The only thing I will say with Burns, I do feel sorry for him because I do think when you have an unorthodox style, it is really, when you get it wrong, your style accentuates the failure, if you know what I mean. So the fact that he had his foot, it felt like his foot was in another planet outside off stump and all of this. Yes, but then when you get it wrong, if you do have that unorthodox technique, it's going to look worse because of the way you play. And for example, yeah, it was horrible. I'm not going to deny it. But then again, do you know what it kind of reminded me of? Was Hamid. First test back against India, Lords, he got a golden duck, completely missed a straight one. Now I know that's not Hamid. That's not
mm.
what he is. That was pure nerves. I think it might be a little bit different with Burns, but still, I don't want people to write off players just because of one bad moment. Like, and maybe if Burns got dropped for the next test, I wouldn't complain. But I also am not going to be angry if he stays in because I think players just need to be given a chance. And the issue we got with openness is what else have we got? Unless we delve in and do theories like James Vince. And as much as I agree with you, and we want to do that, that's a fan's point of view. But the England setup just probably won't do that. So maybe it's better to build that. But I do think Hamid was a bit of a positive. And I think
Yeah,
if Hamid can keep going. He can have a right series. I think he's got a technique where he's someone who's done things the right way, Ben. Like he went down back to the county game after like they nearly ended his England career really, really young. He went back 3 years in the county game, became highest run scorer in a county champ last season, and he's kind of revolutionised his game. So I think he's all right, but we just got to remember that if people underperform as well, we're not an England side that is blessed with such luxuries. But if you look at Australia, Hazelwood now injured in the bowling. He won't play a part in the next test, maybe not even the next two tests. Warner is a bit of an injury doubt. Stark hasn't bowled since 2015, 5 games in a row. He hasn't done that before, but he might be required to do that now because of Hazelwood's injury. There are a lot of issues swirling around the Australian camp that are big and are quite worrying for them. And I think if England play their cards right, we might have the better hand in squad depth and squad management if we can keep going. And we've got to use everything at our disposal. So that's what I think. But in a way, I think we just got to trust the process a little bit and keep the faith because we're not flushed with amazing talent everywhere. So we just got to keep persevering a little bit. I don't know what you think about that.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And we've got Australia's got their own problems, and we said before, this is not the Australias of the past. They are a lot weaker. They've got their own key men. They've got Hazelwood and Cummins in the bowling, although
Yeah,
Hazelwood picked up an injury. They've got Warner, Smith, and Labuschagne at the top. They're the five real standout players. The other six are no different to our six in those positions. And obviously Warner's carrying a knock as well. So we don't know about him for the second test. So yeah, we just need to keep our options up keep going. I think we need to stick with our batting lineup in test two and second test, and bring back Gordon Anderson and then see how it goes. It's as you said already before. This is a massive, massive test, and this is the series in Adelaide, and I can't wait for Thursday morning. To be fair.
yeah. I think you've hit the nail on the head that this is the Ashes now. These next 5 days, starting from tomorrow night. And what I do like about what Roots said originally. I think he's finally admitted something. He said at the start of the series, look, I know that the Ashes will define my captaincy and it will define the careers of my players. And I think actually admitting that is amazing because they understand the magnitude of how important this series is because it's the most important series to all of the fans. I was lucky enough to be at the World Cup final, as I always mention on this podcast, and it was an incredible day and it was amazing to win the World Cup. But for me, as a cricket fan and a cricket purist, the Ashes is the most important thing, and nothing will ever change that for me. In international cricket, nothing will ever change that, and I think players understand that. And whatever happens, I still know that it would be a miracle in some ways and an amazing sporting story if we won the Ashes down under. And even me, as an absolute eternal positive optimist at all times, knows that that is a long shot, but I just want them to give Australia a series, and then at least we've got something to be proud of and work on. And that's why I just want to see Adelaide being a fight, a real fight, and that will give me some positives. So if England can deliver that, even in the first 2 days, and just show an intention of we're not going to back down here. If you're going to win this series, it's going to be because you had to work for it and you had to earn it. Then that is a positive, and I think England get that now, and am expecting to see a fight back, and I'm really excited for that because when England are down, when the chips are down, we can do something, and that's what we need.
Hmm. Definitely, and also, so moving away from Ashes cricket now, and one thing that cricket does need is good news stories. At the moment, it's been quite a tough few months, and I don't think we probably need to go into too much detail because obviously it has been discussed an awful lot with the things going on at Yorkshire and also now other counties as well. And it is absolutely awful and brought cricket into a bad light. And rather than covering so much of that, we need to be looking at the good news stories and not so much to put a spin on it, but actually, I like our channel here to be why cricket is so good and what cricket does bring to people. And one thing, reading this month's Cricketer magazine, one story which is absolutely amazing and literally what the entire sport needs at the moment is just your interview and showing the goods what cricket can get. I really hurt by hearing Rafiq say about he doesn't want his son to be involved with cricket because of how horrible cricket is. But I believe, from my own experience and obviously from what I've seen, is cricket can be such a power of good, and it needs to be. It's all about the spirit of cricket, and it should be. And George, your story was absolutely fascinating to read.
Oh, thank you, Ben. Thanks, mate. I mean, do you know what? It really, that's what was amazing. I gave that interview a few months ago, actually. Now, and firstly, everyone knows me on this pod now. Knows that cricket is my life, is my greatest passion, and I've always, I'm like you, for not watching cricket, I'm reading cricket, I'm listening about cricket, and I've always been a massive fan of the cricketer. And I thought that is the, alongside wisdom and all those books, those are like the bibles of cricket. And to see my name in that is just amazing. I mean, I've got it here, and if you can see, but I've got my photos in the cricketer. It is the real cricketer, and it's like it's just incredible, and I can't still pinching myself about that. But I'm so glad at the timing it's come out, because I'm not gonna beat around the bush here. It has been an awful time for our sport, but I was really really passionate to try and show people that yeah, we need to address the issues. Of course we do, and we will, and we got to work together to do that. But this sport actually has an ability like no other, in my opinion, to help people. I mean, I've been really honest all the time, and I think actually I'm honest on this pod and everything, but probably that interview is the most honest I've ever been, and actually admitting that after my mum passed away 4.5 years ago, and how difficult I've felt with suicide attempts and such awful emotion about all of that. I wouldn't be here without cricket. It literally saved my life, and I don't think any other sport or any other thing could have done that, but cricket did. And I think if I and my story and the story that I know that you have to share about your own experiences and the amazing people in this community, if one of those stories goes out and shows at least one person who might be dubious about cricket with what's going on at the moment, or is struggling with life or anything, and knows that it doesn't have to be cricket or just a passion, and getting involved in passions can help you through, and the power of an amazing sport like cricket that really shows you the beauty of life and how life should be led, then we've helped and we've done our job. And that's what I feel. If I can help one person realize that, then I've done my job, and that's all I want to do. And yeah, I think it's been amazing and really cathartic for me. I always find Christmas very difficult, losing my mum and everything like that. So for this coming out, I found it a really cathartic experience for me to sit down and actually really think about the last 4 years and what I've done. And it's made me realise, yeah, I'm indebted to cricket, because this sport has kept me going when I struggled to keep myself going. And I know now that cricket will be the one thing that stays with me for the rest of my life. It's what I'm known for now. I used to be known for a lot of other things, and now I'm known for cricket. But I like that, and I don't ever want that to change now. And this sport is my life, and that's what I want. And I want it to be like that for so many other people, because I know it has the power to do that, and I think it will. And if my story and everything else can come out now, we can show the actual great things about this sport. It's the greatest thing on earth, in my opinion, and it saves lives, Ben, and it enriches them, and that's what we got to keep doing. So if my story and others can keep the message going, then let's do it. Cricket is always the winner, and it will always be the greatest thing in people's lives. I think it has such a power for good. It's a force for good, and that's what we need to let people know.
It is, and obviously that's a whole um, sort of like storyline in your article, is how good cricket can be, and how where things are rough and sort of like life could be really tough and challenging sometimes, and um, actually cricket's always there, good, bad, ugly. Actually, just getting out and it being a sport whereby, even though it's such a individual based team sport and so much of it is about technique, there is so many clubs around. Like I've played league cricket this year for the first time,
Mm.
Division 12 in the Sussex League, the bottom division, and actually I can't play cricket to save my life, but I could hold my own. And I know I've bowled. Uh, okay, I got bowled first ball when I played cricket in the league game, but I bowled 5 overs over 2 different games, and I didn't go for more than 12 in any over. And actually, by able to do that and feel included, and I've never been a sporty person in terms of very good at it, but I couldn't necessarily go and play Sunday league football. I have a I've been open here. I've got a heart condition. I can't run around for 90 minutes or 80 minutes or whatever they play at Sunday league level. I couldn't do it. I couldn't do that sport. However, I can field for 40 overs. I
Yeah,
do. They do get the breaks. We stop for tea. Obviously, it's restricted by Boris over the last couple of years. However, the social aspect of it has been so warm and welcoming, and I've loved my experience. And I remember going on to bowl when I played my first game, and basically was chatting to the opposition umpire. It was like, "Yeah, well, I'm 32. I've never bowled before," and he was literally like, "Good luck," and he was giving me tips of what I needed to be doing when I was playing against his team, and sort of like coaching me through the over. And by doing that, and obviously we was having a chat after the game, and it's like it's amazing that somebody's willing to take up the sport when you've got there was a 16-year-old who hit a century against us, and he's sort of like, but you're not phased by that but that's because everybody's so welcoming at the cricket club, and obviously there's been some horrid events which has happened in the unfortunately in the professional game, but hopefully it's we can show people that we need to learn from that and we need to correct those that they just cannot happen and there's no excuse. And whatever happens, we need to re-educate and deal with it, and I'm sure the UCB will. But actually, we need to sort out on the grassroots, and I would love to inspire just one person to play cricket and get involved in it, and I absolutely love it. Today's, as we're recording this, quite fitting. Um, there was a funeral for a friend of ours, or a friend of mine earlier, a cricket fan at Hove, a member who's been locked down for obviously vulnerable, so he locked down for the best part of 18 months. However, we was chatting about cricket over this time, and it was a bit of hope and a bit of normality in a really stressful time in
mm,
COVID. And there were so many good news stories out there, and cricket's so inclusive. And follow the page, message me, message George, message the page, write on the post. You want to chat about cricket. If you're ever feeling down, we're here. We're always happy to talk cricket.
mm,
There's our Facebook page. There's Let's Talk Sports group. There's the Spirit of Cricket group, which is absolutely amazing. Just get involved. Doesn't necessarily mean getting your pads on and taking. I took the best part of nearly 2 decades from my love of cricket to first playing cricket. So it doesn't have to be the playing; it can just be chatting cricket and
mm.
having that community. It's amazing. So honestly, if anybody's watching this and thinking about getting involved, just start messaging and just start posting and just interact.
Exactly. I couldn't have put it better myself. And what I will add to that is I also do something during the Ashes on my Twitter page. I do a little thing where you can message me directly, and I get people to message me if they ever want to talk cricket. I know it can be a bit of a lonely experience getting into watching cricket in those wee small hours of the evening and the morning. It just on your own. So I always love people to talk to me and talk cricket. I think we understand, both of us, what the power of what it can do, because we are two of the sort of the biggest beneficiaries of it. We've lived through it. We've got the badge and we've got the t-shirt and we're wearing it. And we're here today because of the power that it's given us. Especially me, I'm physically here because of my relationship with cricket. So, it's our life's passion. We want to give it to more people. We want to talk about it. That's why we're in this community. It's incredible. And let's just keep going with it, because at the end of the day, for me, cricket is just the most beautiful sport in what it can do and how it makes you feel. And I just want to give that joy to more people. If I could bottle that feeling up and sell it, it would be a world bestseller. But the best thing we can do is give it to people, talk to people, keep going, and get more people to get involved in this amazing sport. And that's exactly what all of us will do. So let's just keep going. And like I've always said, and I said it today, cricket is and always will be the winner. So let's just keep going with it.
Definitely, and to be fair, I think this is a really good. It's been a long episode, although there's been a long gap between episodes. It's always going to be with the Ashes as well, but I
Yeah.
think that's probably a really good place to stop for today. We'll be back at some point, hopefully, when the Test series is 1-1 after a fascinating pink ball test. But yeah, just keep on watching and come on, England.
Come on, England. Keep the faith, guys. Cricket is the best.
Thanks for that, George. I'm just gonna think what's going to be. Hopefully, it's got Embroidery